Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of Shaking Hands. I'm your host, Jack Moran. You can find me on Instagram at Blue Collar Kid. That is Blue Collar KEHD. We have an awesome guest today, a longtime friend of mine, Cillian Dunne. He's an investigative author who's written 4 books thus far, and also a screenwriter that's living out here in LA and doing some really cool things. How we doing, Cillian?
Good, mate. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I kind of give you a little background on what we do with the podcast. You know, it's a platform to get people who are chasing their dreams to share their stories in hopes to kind of catalyze the decision for someone else who may be in the rat race to, make the leap into chasing their own passions. Because, I firmly believe that when you chase your passion, that's the best contribution that you can make to the world. But we kind of always start off by talking about your story. How did you get into entrepreneurship? How'd you, start off writing? What were kind of the stages that got you where you are today?
Yeah, I like you said, I've written 4 books. I wrote my first book when I was 22. I was still in college, and I before that I just kind of like dicked around writing screenplays and little short stories and all that because I love storytelling. But I started writing books actually because I went through a breakup. My ex-girlfriend at the time broke up with me, and I was in Dublin with nothing else to do, and I was like, fuck it, I'll just write a book. And so I did it, started it and did it, and it was an awesome feeling, but it wasn't very good. And it wasn't very good at all, but I just kind of loved the feeling of doing something for myself and finishing it. So I kept doing it, and then that eventually led into the investigative stuff. And what sort of really tipped me over the edge in terms of going out on my own to do it and not sort of just dicking around doing it was at the very end of college. Didn't really know what I wanted to do whatsoever, but I was just writing a lot. And I had one piece of, it was my first piece of writing that was sort of you could say it was critically acclaimed or whatever you would call it. Anybody who read it really liked it, and it won a few competitions, and it was recognized in this industry platform thing. So so I just decided to move out to LA. But when I moved out to LA, I was still sort of living with that fear. I was working a 9-to-5 job and I was doing this. So I was working crazy days. I was up at whatever. I was up at 7, 8. No, I was up early. I was up at 5:30 to work East Coast hours for my job. Finish at 2:30, and then I would write from 3 to 9 or 10 or something like that. So I was doing 2 full-time jobs essentially. And then last May, about a year ago, I just said, fuck the 9-to-5, and started writing full time. And I was I just have to just find a way to make money doing this.
Right. So what's that leap kind of been like, jumping in head first into entrepreneurship and into your passion, not having the comfort of the job anymore?
It was awesome at first, and then I went through a real dark patch where I was like, fuck, I have no money. And then I just sort of I had no money and shit, and I just sort of kind of pushed through it. I was like, okay, the point of no return, what do they say? Burn the ships. That's burn the ships. It's a phrase you can't return.
Right.
So I had that burn the ships months back, and I was like, okay, I got to just keep writing. And I wrote this book that's here on the table. I just I do investigative stuff, but I just went out independently and interviewed a former Crip in South Central LA and wrote a prison book about his experiences, and interviewed prison wardens and just literally just cold called prisons to build this story. And that was sort of a Kickstarter. I did that, and then good things started coming my way because I went all in on this and essentially did nothing else for 3 or 4 months with zero income.
So how long is that book?
It's 208 pages. It's 62,000 words, which to compare to something The Great Gatsby is only 50,000 words or something. So it's you can read it in one sitting if you're a really fast reader. But to write, it was 2 or 3 months.
And how much time is that per day you're putting into?
I was putting in 7 or 8 hours a day, just on this, like strictly on this, but it's like 1,200 words per day at least, and that's just like Stephen King's model. And Stephen King is super prolific, so it's like if I just follow what he does, like work ethic wise, like I'll get books done, and it works. It's like you just have like a word limit, and it could take you 8 hours, it could take you 2, but usually it takes like longer than a couple hours, because you just want to make sure everything like is good and grammatically it's correct and stuff like that.
So are you working on any projects right now, like actively?
Yeah, I'd say realistically I'm coming to like the tail end of one project down in Panama. Yeah, Panamanian story. It's really cool. I won't be able to talk about it too much, but I'd say like the Cliff Notes version. It's sort of like a Cold War political espionage kind of thing, and it's super cool. It's investigative as well. It definitely is a step up from this, but that's good. That's like honestly what I was looking for, because every book I'd like to make it like way more challenging. And it's super challenging, but it's also like that's where it actually is fun. Like if I was just writing like the same shit over and over again, I'd get really bored. Like that was part of the reason for just like absolutely hating like my 9 to 5. It's just like it just so monogamous. Like it's like every day is the exact same. It's like a carbon copy of the last day, and people seem to just be like delusional with themselves. Like you're just kind of like fucking like monkeys in a factory.
So what's kind of like the process when you're doing like these investigative books? Is it it's kind of like an interrogation, right? You have to like extract the information from the people. Like, how do you kind of go about that?
Yeah, I sort of, it might not be the best analogy, but I describe it as like wading through water. So like you're trying to get to like the deep end where like all of the like really cool information is. But like if you dive right into the deep end, like you might drown. You know what I mean? Like if you dive right in, you might drown. So you gotta wade your way out there. So you gotta wade through all the bullshit that like you really don't care about. Like, you talk about more personal stuff with the person the subject that you're speaking with. You talk about like surface level stuff. Like with this guy Dave, for this book, we started it. We didn't like he murdered people when he was a teenager. That's why he went to prison. But we started out talking about like, his favorite like restaurants, or like talking about like chicks. Like you see any girls right now, like how's that going? And you just kind of like build and establish trust.
You got to build some rapport. And
and then once you get, because the subject isn't stupid, like they know why they're being interviewed and they know what you want, but you just have to like sort of like build you just have to like, the nucleus is like the really interesting stuff, and you just have to build the story from the outside in.
Has everyone been like super cooperative, or have you had to deal with like
sort of it's like it's pretty 50-50. Some people are super cooperative, but everybody wants to be well represented, when in fact that like not everybody can be like 100% well represented. So they're going to tell you what you want to hear. Right. You just have to decipher what's bullshit and what isn't, and then use your best judgment, and also like research outside of the interviews is huge as well.
So this book, Dreams in Incarceration, were you ever like nervous with doing the
with
interview?
Dave? Yeah.
Honestly, he's rehabilitated now.
He's totally rehabilitated. Yeah, he's the man. I'm like actually friends with him. Like my mom was here in LA like 3 weeks ago, and I introduced her to him. Like we went and got coffee.
No way.
Yeah, he's the man. I absolutely love him. He's got like a wicked dark past, but he did his time. Like he's super rehabilitated. He's kind of like a motivational speaker now. That's like his ultimate goal. So he's going all in, trying to like make that happen, and yeah, he's doing good work. He's the man.
How old was he when he got like released from?
He was like 32, maybe 33 when he got released. He was 17 when he was like tried.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I think it's a testament that you can, so many people are worried when they leave college about what they're going to do. And it's like, you could literally fuck up the next 10 years of your life, and like second chances do exist.
Dude, 100%. I was like, like while I was interviewing him, while I was writing the book rather, because I write my books in first person. So like I get inside the mind of the person that I'm interviewing and then I write it how I feel like they would progress through their own story, with almost like internal commentary like along the way. I just find that really interesting. That's why I kind of just like picked a narrative and just like stuck with it to become like an expert at it. And he, oh God, sorry, I was totally just lost my train of thought.
Yeah, like we were talking about second chances.
Oh yeah. So yeah, he I mean, he did his time, dude. Like he had to go through some like dark shit, and I fully believe that he's earned like his second chance. But like he really had to work for it, and he knew that he had to work for it.
So you were saying before, like how you kind of taken the full dive now. You don't have that like comfortable backing of a job. What was it kind of like with your peers and your surroundings and your family? Like, was it full support, or you have some haters? Like, because I've always found like it's like, you know, this journey of entrepreneurship and doing your own thing and like not following the traditional path is an anomaly. There's not many people that are doing it, unfortunately. So when you go out for that external feedback, it's not, I mean, at least in my own experience, it's typically not positive because people don't relate to it very well. So they're, you know, they'd rather steer you back to the traditional and the conventional, which unless you have the confidence, can be daunting. Like you may want to go back to that comfort.
Yeah, dude, for sure. There were a couple times, actually, it's funny. There was like an exact moment. I was like, after I finished this book, I kind of like didn't really know what I was doing. Like it was great doing this and it was totally worth it. But there was like a week where like I was really freaking out. I didn't have much money at all, didn't know what I was doing. And I was interviewing for full-time jobs again. Like I was literally like, I was interviewing for full-time jobs, and then I got that call about the Panama book.
Yeah.
I swear to God, like I got the call about the Panama book.
It's funny how that works out like that, you know?
Yeah, and I called the guy that I was about to do a final interview. The guy like really wants me to work for his company, and I called him and I was like, hey, like I'm going to Panama. Like I'm not going to do this.
And life finds a way to like steering you in the right direction.
For sure, yeah. And I'm also I am big on like manifesting. Not to sound like an LA cunt or anything, but like I am
I
big
agree.
on manifesting. Yeah, I think you like if you constantly are thinking about something, like it's in some way, shape, or form, it's gonna happen.
Right.
But I don't know. I think just like for me in terms of like support or whatever, I'd say like my core friend group really supportive, like very insanely supportive. Like they always sort of have been. Family was like. My mom, extremely supportive. My dad took a little bit of time to come around. Brother, very supportive. But like outside of that, you know, people, I'm sure you get this, like you've gotten this as well, but like people will like when they're talking to you like in person, they'll pretend sometimes that they're like really supportive and they're like, oh, you know, you're writing books, like good for you. And then behind your back, they're like, that guy's a fucking bum. Like this fucking guy doesn't do shit. Like just smokes weed all day and writes. It's like, no, fuck you. Like this takes way more time than you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like at the end of the day, like it bothered me at first. Like I really have been like a people pleaser my whole life, but I just got to a certain point where I was like, I just don't give a fuck. Like
yeah, that's the way to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like those people will come back around, and it's like if you're judging someone else for like chasing their dreams, like it's because you're usually projecting what you're not doing.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? You were talking about manifesting. Do you have like a process that you go through to, you know, I talk about it like you're controlling your reality by being congruent. Like what your goals are congruent with what you're doing every single day. Do you have a process that you go through to like, is it like affirmations? Like how do you manifest and like keep yourself aligned with your path?
I would say, yeah, affirmations is probably the right word to use. Like I really just make sure that I'm thinking about what I want all the time. You know what I mean? Like it, and I guess like to like a lot of people that sounds exhausting. You know what I mean? Because people love to turn off their brains. And like one thing, this is kind of a tangent I'll come back to, but like one thing that I fucking hated about working in an office or like 9 to 5, and it's just, I feel like it's such a relevant example. I had coworkers that would get to work at like 7 or 7:30. They would work, and they would put in hard work. Like they would work till like 7 o'clock at night or whatever. To wind down, they would come home, sit on their couch and watch The Office, the TV show. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, that is just so miserable. It made me so depressed that like people did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you just
but-
can't escape it.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing to your mind? Like, you're fucking rotting your brain by doing shit like that. So, also, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
You're
good.
good.
I've sweared like 30
Yeah,
times.
we're at the point of no return now.
Yeah, burn the ships, burn the fucking ships. Right? In terms, I just think about it all the time. It's a total obsession. Like, I've got a very obsessive brain, but it benefits me because you have to be like, well, no, like exactly like you. Like, you wouldn't be able to build EI if you weren't obsessed. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I'm obsessed with this stuff. And all I want to do is just like write, and I just want to like write good stories, like whether they're books or screenplays or whatever. Like, that's all I care about, and I'll do whatever it takes to like get exactly where I want to be.
And I talked about like congruence and incongruence before. Like, to be successful, like really successful, it doesn't take 40 hours a week. You know, it takes a lot of time. And I find that if you're not doing what you're passionate about and what you like, and you don't have that obsession, it's impossible to put in the amount of time that it requires to be successful. It's not sustainable. You will burn out if you're, hating your life, if you're looking forward to the weekend. Like, if you're passionate and you're chasing what you want, what you're obsessed with, it's nothing to put in 70 hours a week. It's nothing to think about it constantly, because it's what you're already thinking about. And when you do that, it truly does manifest into reality, and like those outcomes start coming into your control. Do you agree?
Yeah, oh, dude, big time. Yeah, I just like I feel like there's so much time. There's so much time in the week, but at the same time, like, there's not enough. You know what I mean? It's like people, like even people that do work like full-time jobs, like 40 hours is not that much. Like, if you really want to, like, you could have a side hustle, and like you can make it work, and you can build to the point where like you're making a more comfortable leap. It's like, I just don't get it. So like I'll always put in like the exact amount of time necessary. Sometimes, like, actually it never falls below, it would never fall below 40, but it would like fluctuate between like 80 and 60.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, because I work on the weekends too, obviously, and it would fluctuate between like 80 and 60. And that it still does it. It still feels like I could be doing more. Like, there's definitely some writer out there that's working like 90 or 100. You know what I mean?
And you don't necessarily have to be writing 80 hours or doing your job 90 hours a week,
No.
but it's like being congruent that what you are doing is aligned with that path. So I'm a firm believer that like you have to take care of your body, and you have to be healthy, and like putting in those hours to go to the gym, or going to, get a massage, or go to the spa, and to meditate. Like, those things are all congruent with your path. They support the foundation that allows you to be successful. So it's not, necessarily putting in 80 hours a week working and writing, or, me building EI, but it's like putting in that time, all the things that are everything that I'm doing somehow is correlated to that path.
Yeah.
So like, have you dealt with any adversity along this path? Like, I mean, obviously, I think that's a big thing we talk about on this podcast, is like the biggest reason why people get steered away from entrepreneurship is because they have a negative connotation with adversity. But when you're plummeting down a path that's unknown, it's kind of expected. And if you can expect that adversity, it's easier to deal with than, a lot of people, they come to this adversity and it's scary because there's a fear of the unknown, and they go back to the comfort, which you never achieve your goals that way. So have you dealt with like any adversity or?
Yeah, definitely. I think, anything to do with like writing or literature, like art, is just, it's always like, it's really subjective, so it's hypercritical. Just in terms of like any adversity or challenges, like I'd say getting over like criticisms, it was really helpful, but like not necessarily like getting over. I think it's one thing to sort of just like ignore the hate, but it's another thing to like understand where it's coming from, internalize it, and like adapting. So when it comes to writing, I received a shitload of criticism at first. Like my first book like was not very good at all. My second one was all right. Second one eventually got published, which is great, and it just added like a little bit of credibility. But like, oh my god, my editor like shredded me. Like my publisher like shredded me. Like it's like every book is like an extension of you to some degree. So like you really feel us, And then outside of the art, like like marketing has been insanely difficult, or like standing out from the crowd. But I've sort of just learned, and I'm still learning like a lot, but I've sort of just learned that like the way that I push through it, and I'm sure it's like a very like common experience, but like literally just I just put my head down and just like fucking charge right through the challenge, and you know, like pick up like little pieces of information, like learn along the way. But yeah, I honestly I feel like I just sort of like I don't really like think as much as I do now. I obviously I will think about things like that are very important, and if there needs to be a strategy, like of course I'll sit down and plan. But in terms of like action, I just, you know.
Yeah, the adversity itself has such a negative connotation, but I don't think that it has to be like failure and adversity. It's really just like the stress and the pain is the cost of learning, and that knowledge is what allows you to re-channel your path to get you online with whatever your goal is. And eventually, if you keep repeating that path or process and keep getting through that adversity, eventually it's going to transact and intersect with your goal.
Yeah.
So how do you like, what is your definition of success? Like you're at this place, you look around and you're like, okay, Cillian made it.
Huh. That's such a, like, cause I think about this quite a bit. Like, when will I be happy doing what I'm doing? Like I'm already happy, but like when will I feel like I've like sort of like earned where I'm at? And I think that I think that like I'm big on sort of like freedom. I think like yeah, working is great, and I get a lot of pleasure out of like just the act of working. But I also think that like all of like the beauties of life come from like when you are like when you're sort of like personally satisfied. You know what I mean? Like I like to say that like I you know, I do like to have a drink and like have a good time and all that. But like I don't like to do that when I don't feel like I've earned it. And the older I'm getting and the deeper I'm going into this, the less I feel like I've earned that, because I have like bigger goals that take longer to reach. So I think like when I think of success, I think of like literally just like reaching like goals, like bigger and bigger goals. And I think I have a problem with like not stopping every once in a while and like looking around and say, oh shit, like I've reached like all these goals, and like yeah, like in terms of like the kind of like success I want to have, like I'm on my path. But yeah, I don't know, like I don't really have like an overall goal, like a number one goal, other than like I would like to be like, when I die, I would like for my work to like live on in eternity. That's like a fucking bullshit way of
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, like I want my writing to like live on in eternity. Like I would love for my name to be up there with like Stephen King or like Hemingway or whatever, like Kerouac, like all people who are like recognizable names for their writing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate goal. But I don't think that is like also what success will be, because like I do believe in personal happiness. Like I think I would love to have like a wife and kids like one day. I think that's like I think that's for a lot of people, like having like a good family is you know, an idea of success, or you know, little things like that. I just want to be happy, you know?
Sometimes I feel like the universe talks to me a little bit and is like, okay, like if you want this goal, like, and you want to, you know, achieve this success that I've defined, you have to do this. And it like burns within me. I'm like, and I know whether or not I'm actually executing what I need to. Do you like, do you know what path you have to take to get yourself to being on that Stephen King level or the Kerouac level?
Yeah. Like, yeah, I do. I have the same feeling. I think with me, it's literally just it's writing. It's first of all, it's writing like every day, no matter what. Like writing every day, you could be having the worst day of your life, but on the worst days of your life, that's when you get like the best writing, which is really ironic.
A lot of emotion is like coming through.
Exactly. Yeah. If you like, nobody likes a happy writer. You know what I mean? We like our writers depressed as fuck and like on the verge of suicide. Those are the best. Those are the best writers. But yeah, no, totally. I think like writing every day, and then also in terms of like the content that I'm writing, or in terms of like the stories that I'm exploring, I think like actually I think like resonance with the reader, or like if it's like for movies, resonance with the viewer is really important. Like I would love for my stories to, I'd say it's so hard to explain because I write like really dark stuff, but I love like placing pockets of light in like really dark places. Because I think that's how the world actually is for a lot of people. It's like the world is really dark for a lot of people, but if you can find the light, then you can like continue going on. So like that's what I do with the books. Like I place pockets of light
Interesting.
in stories that are otherwise like like you know, relatively dark. You know, they're not like horror books or anything like that. But
That's really interesting.
yeah, so that's sort of like my mission is to like, I don't want to say like inspire people because it's not really like inspiring stories, but just like captivation and resonance. I want my writing to like resonate with people however they see fit, you know.
Yeah, and I've gotten a chance to like read some of your stuff recently, and I think it definitely does. So you're
Oh, thanks.
you're
Cheers.
you're on the path. What is like? This is an interesting question I like to ask. Like, what is one thing Cillian today would tell Cillian who just started out? Like, what kind of advice would you give yourself? If there's one piece of advice.
Oh man, I would say be like when I first be open to change. Be open to change. When I first started out, I was really stubborn about like the way I did things, and then I was forced into like understanding different perspectives. Like it was sort of like a gentle force, but people like that were my, I guess like they were my peers, but they just like were very familiar with like who I was and how I wrote and what I was trying to write. They're like, okay, maybe you should like think about things differently, or like you should read this book or whatever. So I was wicked stubborn when I first started out. If I wasn't so stubborn when I first started out, maybe I'd be a little bit further right now. But it also just like, you can't change the past. So I don't like, you know.
Yeah, no regrets.
Yeah, no regrets. I don't linger on that idea. But I do know that if I was more open to change when I first started, or like more open to learning, I would say, I'd be in a better spot than I'm in right now.
And I'll kind of wrap it up with this question. Is there any piece of advice you could just give like somebody who may be on the cusp, like has a conviction that they want to follow this dream or this passion and they haven't quite, made the leap yet? What would you say to them?
I think just do it. You know what I mean? Just fucking jump. Like,
what's to lose?
Yeah, what's to lose? And also like we're like in the grand scheme of things, we're young guys. I don't get what all the fuss is about. You know what I mean? Like if we went bankrupt tomorrow, if we go broke tomorrow, like it wouldn't really be that bad. You know what I mean?
I agree completely.
It wouldn't be that bad, dude. Like I was on the verge of homelessness in January.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like you're not going to become homeless. Like at the end of the day, you're a smart kid.
Yeah.
Like you can find a job.
You can find a job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can do something. Like I was like financially, I was in a bad spot. Just like working, like writing over the last few months, just because I put everything into the books. And so I started doing like freelance copywriting, literally just like cold outreach to 100 businesses a day. And I picked up like 3 or 4 clients. And now I think by the end of April, maybe like the middle of May, I will be making as much as I was from my 9-to-5 job I'll be making as much as I was in my 9-to-5 job as I am now doing fucking freelance copywriting.
And it's unbelievable, and congratulations that
Oh, thank you. It's literally just like I just did it.
And anyone has the ability to do it. It's just like having the confidence to like finally make that leap.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So is there anywhere, like where can people go find your books? Like where can they find you if they want to reach out to you, have any questions?
My Instagram is dunne.cillian, dunne.cillian. That's Instagram. And then my books are pretty much all on Amazon. You can get them in a few different places, but Amazon is the cheapest and the best.
All right, Cillian. Well, I appreciate you coming out, and it was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, dude. Pleasure to be here.
All right. Well, that concludes episode 4 of Shaking Hands. I'm your host, Jack Moran. You can find me on Instagram at Blue Collar Kid. That is Blue Collar KEHD. If you like the show, please subscribe and tune in again. Reach out to me on Instagram if you have any questions or feedback or suggestions for people you want to have on the show, or questions that you'd like to be answered. But other than that, tune in next time for more interesting conversations and guests. Thanks, guys.